All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining Leeza's Care. And in today's presentation, we are covering managing incontinence with confidence and compassion. And we have Deanna here with us today. She is the National Sales Manager for Cine, and she will be leading us in this presentation.
Super. Thank you so much, Sochi, for the opportunity to be here. I know my teammates and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to have my colleague Amber helping me with the slide deck. So I think maybe it might be best if people have questions to put them in the Q&A, and maybe we can
Mhm.
address those in a little bit. So we do thank you.
Absolutely. Of
Amber,
course.
can you go to the next slide, please? Great. So I'd be curious to learn on the call today how many folks are caring for a loved one at home, or maybe providing an abundance of care for somebody that might be living in an independent living or assisted living community. And then if there are what we sometimes refer to as paid professional caregivers that may be working in communities, that helps us with an understanding of how to uh, talking points throughout our presentation. So if you're able to do that, that would be a big help. If not, no biggie. But I wanted to start with just sharing a little bit about high umbrella view stats related to urinary incontinence for those that are taking care of an individual, whether it is in a community or whether it is at home. You folks are the one that I call, you're probably deep in the weeds with it, thus being on the call today. So it's just important to understand what is urinary incontinence. Often can be referred to as bladder leaks, but it basically is an involuntary leakage of urine. People can't control it. And in our country, it's a very common condition, but it is not a normal part of aging. And I think that's really important to digest that and understand that it is common, but it is not a normal part of aging. So sometimes people can say, gee, mom's getting older, dad's getting old, therefore they're having bladder leaks. There's usually something causing that. So people with dementia, uh, the prevalence is very high. It's estimated that 50% or more people that have some type of neurocognitive decline will have some level of incontinence. They may have light, they may have moderate. As they progress in their disease, they may have heavy or severe. So there are basically 4 to 5 different types of urinary incontinence. And so I just wanted to really highlight the umbrella view of those different types. So, functional incontinence, a lot of people with dementia will have what is referred to as functional incontinence. And that's really that the bladder works, the urinary tract works as it's supposed to be working, but there's something, some other condition going on in the body where for people with dementia, the urinary tract may be working just fine, but the brain is not able to put those triggers out to say, gee, it's time for me to go. So it's the brain that's causing that functional incontinence. Another example that I share with people is you could have all your faculties, but maybe your legs don't work as good as they used to. And maybe it takes longer to get to the bathroom, and maybe someone needs assistance. And so, a person that may be in their home or in a community and they need help, and staff or their caregiver is not there at the time that they have to go, they may have urinary incontinence. They're okay with their faculties, but it's functional. I can't get there in time. Another example might be somebody who has Parkinson's, for example, and maybe their hands cannot get their zippers down on their pants quick enough, and they have functional incontinence. So it's very common for people with dementia. Overactive bladder, as you'll see here, that's urgency, frequency. And so I think of an overactive bladder, and this is why it's important to understand the different types, because there are things that we'll get into in a minute that you might be able to improve some level of incontinence to make it less than what it is. It could be prescription medications that could be causing an urgency to go or a frequency to go for overactive bladder. It could be caffeine, and maybe it's just changing the amount of intake that a person's having related to caffeine. So there are different things that cause an overactive bladder, but that's basically, I have to go now. UTIs could cause an overactive bladder. So if you can fix the UTI, you can fix the overactive bladder in that example, thus the importance. And then stress incontinence, I think of people with COPD as one example. They might be wheezing, they might be coughing, they're putting strain on that pelvic floor. And so that's what happens with bladder leaks related to stress incontinence. Even people that have had multiple children and those pelvic floors may be weak, so there can be people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. It doesn't always have to be people over the age of 65 that experience this very common chronic condition. But that is what stress incontinence is. And then overflow, if you think of the bladder, it's only so big. And if that bladder is filled with urine and it can't hold anymore, but something's happening where that person is not able to, on their own, release the urine from the bladder, that's where we can get into overflow. And so the example that I bring up, because it is quite common, would be somebody that has prostate, an enlarged prostate, an enlarged prostate. If you think of the bladder and you think of a prostate, when it's enlarged, it could be the size of a walnut. It could be pressing against the bladder. So if the bladder's full, the enlarged prostate is pressing against it, thus causing a bladder leak. Certain types of bladder cancer would be another example that could affect overflow. And then the reason that we have mixed in here is because some people have two or three different types of incontinence, and it's important to look at why. What's the reasoning? Because some of these could be fixed. And I'll give you an example. Someone with dementia could have functional incontinence, but let's say that it was early onset. Well, if they had a UTI, that could be causing the incontinence. And if we took care of the UTI, they may be able to have less severe incontinence where it could be every once in a while. Somebody with COPD that maybe has stress incontinence, but then they get an enlarged prostate. Maybe it's a male, they get enlarged prostate, and now they have two types of things that are challenging for them. So the more that we can understand incontinence, the more we can dig a little deeper to help improve it. And so that's that slide there. Amber, can you go to the next slide, please? Amber, are you able to go to the next slide? Zochi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I
Okay,
think
so
she got
we're waiting.
connection. Yeah.
So we have a bit of
Okay,
a
I see. I'm gonna share screen again.
no problem. No problem. Thank you. Great. So in the last slide, I started to touch on this, whether you are caring for a loved one in the home, whether you are caring for a loved one in a community. Uh, it's very important to look at a person centered approach to care. I know with Leeza's Care Connection that their focus is helping support caregivers, and from what I understand there are a lot of caregivers that are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. And so when we look at Alzheimer's disease, this is a staggering statistic, in my opinion. 60 to 70% of folks with Alzheimer's disease will go on at some point to be challenged with urinary incontinence as the disease progresses. To really break that down, 6 to 7 people out of 10 who have Alzheimer's will go on to have some level of urinary incontinence. And so, looking at the individual, what do they eat? What do they drink? What do they take for medications? Where is their bathroom located? What assistance do they need? Not a blanket approach, because all of us get up in the morning and have different routines and habits. All of us have different voiding habits throughout the day. So that doesn't change really as one ages. We're still individuals. We still need person centered approach. We still need to be cared about as an individual, not as a blanket approach. Can you go to the next slide, please, Amber? And so I really like this slide because I think it adds simplicity to the benefits of sleep. What we're doing in this presentation is we really want to tie in sleep with dementia or Alzheimer's disease and urinary incontinence. Unfortunately, they do go hand in hand quite often. The importance of uninterrupted sleep is crucial to having better outcomes, better clinical outcomes, and better social outcomes, especially for people that have dementia and their caregivers. And so, if you think of sleep, we have in this day and age so much information coming at us throughout the day that if you think of our brains as an open file drawer, by the end of the day, we have the drawers are open. We have file folders that are strewn on the floor with papers, with paper clips, with sticky notes, and it's all over the place. That's kind of like how we go to bed as caregivers quite often, as people with dementia. It just has a lot of, we've got a lot of information. So we go to bed at night with our brains needing restorative sleep, needing uninterrupted sleep, so we can at least start the day off with our file drawer or our brains with everything back intact, the sticky notes, the paper clips, the papers, the file folders, and the nice drawer that's now shut to start our day. So we're going to talk a little bit about uninterrupted sleep and what that means. But I really like that slide deck there because I think it puts it in layman's terms. So what is normal sleep? Well, normal sleep is 7 to 9 hours of what the clinicians refer to as uninterrupted sleep. And you'll see here it says 7 to 9 hours, only 0 to 2 interruptions per night. Those interruptions that they're talking about may be a person just rolling over in bed. They really didn't wake up per se. They rolled over in bed. They maybe pulled a blanket up. They maybe woke up just for a very, very short period of time, but they didn't interrupt the 4 to 5 different sleep cycles that are critical. And when you sleep for 7 to 9 hours, and it's critical at any age, because for caregivers that are on this call, you need your sleep just as much as your loved one needs their sleep. You have a lot on your plate. And so when you get good sleep physically, uninterrupted sleep helps with hormone regulation, it helps with cell regeneration, better social outcomes for residents, whether the resident is living in a home, their own home, or whether a resident is living in a community, or if we want to just use the word people. People have better social outcomes when they get good sleep. better moods. I know my sons are adult boys or adult men, I should say now, but when they were young and my husband and I were being woken up every night, you do what you need to do, right? But I think people can appreciate what challenging times those were. And especially if any of you are still working and caring for a mom or a dad or a loved one, it affects your mood. You need sleep, and your loved one needs sleep. And this is a biggie too, improved nutrition. I have spent a lot of time in nursing homes, whether it's for work or I had my grandmother in a nursing home for 6 years. And if you think of people that are not getting sleep and they're constantly being woken up, you can have a person who has a caregiver or part of the dietary staff come and put a tray on their bedside tray, and they may even help. And people have big hearts in this industry, right? You want to help them eat, but if you're so tired, I don't even want to eat. You might take a couple of bites, and what happens? That tray gets taken away, and then you might wake up later and you're hungry, but you're in between meals. And you may snack on stuff that's unhealthy because you're trying to help mom or dad who now says, I'm hungry. Well, what do we have here for a quick fix before we have dinner, so to speak, as one example. So when you think of getting good sleep, nutrition, sleep, all ties together, mood ties together. And then again, as I mentioned, hormone regulation, cell regeneration, those are the physical aspects. So sleep is important for anybody, but especially important for caregivers and their loved ones. And so how does all of this tie in with managing urinary incontinence? Well, we talked about at the beginning the staggering statistics of 60 to 70% that will have some level of incontinence should they have neurocognitive decline. We talked about the importance of sleep. So we're going to hopefully be able to tie this together for you folks on the next couple of slides. So in this country, it's very interesting. No ill will, big hearts, smart people. We have actually, as a blanket approach, have continuously for over 170 years what they call rounding. Rounding every 2 hours, we want to check the people that we care about. And so we go in, if they're in a community, as one example, we go in every 2 hours and we check on that resident to make sure that they're uh, not wet and that they're comfortable. And if they are wet, we change them. And we do this as a blanket approach. We may have to position certain residents every 2 hours. And so my teammates and I have really done a lot of research. We work with a clinician, and one of our quests in this country is to say, as a blanket approach, not every person needs to be woken up every 2 hours. Some do, maybe some do, but not all. And let's try to move away from a blanket approach, because where that blanket approach comes from is back in the 1850s. Most people are familiar with the very famous nurse, Florence Nightingale. But when she was helping wounded soldiers back in the 1850s during the Crimean War, she would take her famous Lady with the Lamp and she would walk through halls where wounded soldiers were positioned should they have gotten hurt. And she would walk the halls and treat them and check on them. And she would go down the hallway for about an hour. She would come back down the other hallway for about an hour. The soldiers adored her. She had her lamp, thus the famous Lady with the Lamp. That took Florence Nightingale 2 hours to make that trek, make that walk. And then when we had modern hospitals, we adopted that practice at the time. And so this 2 hour rounding goes back over 170 years. But things have changed in 170 years. It's not a federal mandate to change people every 2 hours. It's not a state mandate to change people every 2 hours. It's a habit. And the differences now that we have, you look at on this slide, the top 10 sleep disturbances. Number one is noise. We now have different methods. There's music therapy in communities as one example. We can change things up to prevent noise disturbances. We now are looking into, as systemically, when I say we, systemically, we're looking at amber lighting and how that has a positive effect on sleep for folks. The sleeping environment, we can control temperature now. We can control pillows, blankets, medications we can control. Number six, one of the top 10 sleep disturbances is still continence needs. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but there are products in the marketplace now, on the US market, thank goodness, that can affect this in a positive way, that it does not have to be a disturbance any longer. So, Amber, can you go to the next slide? And the biggest thing to making change and positive change is really being proactive versus reactive. When we are able to gain knowledge, which right here, everyone on this call, kudos. The fact that you took the time to be on this call is a proactive approach to learning more. And we applaud you sincerely for that. We need dozens and dozens and dozens of people for positive ripple effects. But kudos, being proactive is just critical to having better outcomes. Amber, can you go to the next slide, please? So, advantages that we have today for our sleep environment. I touched on these a little bit, but we do have high density mattresses. High density mattresses helps with skin integrity, and it helps people sleep better. We can control temperature much better today in 2024 than we've been able to do in past years. Lighting, comfortable environment. I touched on this. We can make things very comfortable. We have options. And so people have options for blankets, pillows. Same thing when I think about people that are moving into communities or skilled nursing, or you even think if you have gone to a hotel, maybe for work travel, right? Pillows. Some people like a hard pillow. Some people like a soft pillow. Some people like a feather pillow. Some people are allergic to feather pillows. We've got to kind of look at individuality, and that will help to better sleep environment. I'm going to get into high quality incontinence products in a little bit here, but that's crucial to getting a good night's sleep for people that are challenged with urinary incontinence. Amber, can you go to the next one? So one of the ways to be proactive, if you are caring for a loved one at home, and you're struggling, your loved one is challenged with urinary incontinence, I would encourage you to think about taking part in creating a bladder diary, and some things that you can write down in that bladder diary. There are templates online. We have templates we'd be more than happy to share. But if you can look at the different columns here, but writing down how much fluid did my loved one take in? Did they eat soup? Did they drink coffee? Did they have tea? How many times are they going to the toilet, using the toilet? And are they rushed to get there? Did they have any accidents or leakage that happen? But putting that down. And then this is very important too. Write down what was happening at the time of that incident. Very critical, because you can take this bladder diary to your clinician and they can review it. And they are, in a sense, in my opinion, they're very, very educated, good detectives behind the scenes. And you'd be surprised, from your efforts of being proactive with your loved one, and you put the detective or the clinician on the task together, you might be able to come up with some proactive strategies that help your loved one be less incontinent, which no one wants to be incontinent. So if we can improve it at some level, that's a fabulous thing. And even looking at what type of products are you using for your loved one? How often are they being changed? It could be a simple fix. I'll give an example. Someone may be using a pull-up, and the type of pull-up that they're using may only be work well for X number of ounces of urine voided in X period of time. So simply a change in the product from a pull-up to a brief for that particular individual may work well. Other people may just need a pad versus a pull up or a brief. So, all types of things. But the bigger picture is to, again, if you're having challenges and you're caring for a loved one, I would strongly encourage to put together a bladder diary and bring that to your clinician to take a peek with you. And there are probably some proactive things that you can strategize with your clinician about. So, we in this country, and it's not ill intent, it's habits, it's stigma, and until you're deep in the weeds of incontinence, it's not a subject that's often talked about. Although as people with neurocognitive decline continue to live longer, and as caregivers we're caring for more people with neurocognitive, it is starting to come front and center. But if you went into a big box store today and you went into an aisle, you have lots of choices to look at, and there's lots of sizes, and you might see a small, medium, large, extra large. It's a brief, it's a pull up, if it's a pad, it's a man pad, a lady pad. You might even see an ML. What is an ML? Well, that's a product that says it might be a medium, it might be a large. And so with all of these other things, finances, kids, pets, navigating healthcare, navigating insurance, you go into this aisle and you've got a whole aisle of choices. It's no wonder that unintentionally people may look at a product and choose a product that doesn't fit mom or dad quite right. No ill intent, just lack of education, lack of knowledge, exhaustion. And we haven't been taught this unless we're deep in the weeds. So, again, thank you for being here. But the way that we should be viewing incontinence products, in my opinion, is just as critical as how we evaluate medications, how we evaluate wander management tools and resources. It is a critical component to the continuum of care for a loved one. And I'll give you a perfect example. More and more hospital at home programs are showing up in our country, and that's a great thing. People want to stay in their homes longer. That makes perfect sense to me. We now have capabilities with health systems in many pockets of the country, and I think this will spread, where we can bring in clinicians to visit folks at home. We can bring in labs to take blood at home. Okay, that keeps them there. We can bring in x-ray equipment, imaging equipment to do exams in the home. We can do all of that. We can bring in speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. We can bring in all the providers to provide really good care for a loved one at home. But let's say all of those folks are in the home 8 to 5, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. They do a great job. If we don't pay attention to incontinence products, mom or dad could go to bed at night, wear an inferior product. That product could leak. Well, what happens if that leaks? Well, any of us sitting on this call right now, if we had even a quarter size volume of water on our chairs, we would feel uncomfortable. So let's picture now if we took a bottle of water that we're used to and half of that was on our chair, we'd be very uncomfortable. And what would happen? We would get up from our chair. And if it's the middle of the night, you have an older adult with neurocognitive decline, that person could be groggy and they get up and they could fall. So all of this great service that was just provided to them during the day could be all for naught. And that's reality for some, sad reality for some. The number two reason why people over 65 end up in the ER is due to a fall. Some of those falls we can reduce if the person's sleeping at night. So if they're wearing a product that's comfortable, they feel dry, they don't wake up. They don't wake up, they can't fall. And so, wow, what a great concept to keep people more safe. And if they're more safe in their home, they live longer in their homes, and that's the goal that most people want for themselves and for their loved ones. So it has a direct correlation with keeping people safe and looking at people as individuals. So it's critical. So proactive solutions. You know, the name of our brand is Seni, Seni, but we have worked with a geriatrician who does a lot of educational components to our offering out there. And so if it were me, we'd probably have to change the name of the brand that's been in existence for many, many years and put the I first. But we always want to improve incontinence first and foremost and look at ways to improve incontinence, because again, I don't think any of us would put our hands up if I asked the question, who wants to be incontinent? No one wants to be incontinent. So we can do things. We can look at Kegel exercises, starting even at younger ages. That keeps the pelvic muscles, the Kegel muscles, stronger. Simple things. We can look at getting through doors easier when if you're caring for someone in the home and that person, let's say you have a bathroom in your bedroom and you're sleeping with your spouse, maybe your spouse has the one that has the neurocognitive decline, and you've always been the person that sleeps closest to the bathroom within your bedroom. Well, if your person's challenged and has to use the toilet at night and get up, maybe you're the one that says, okay, it's time to shift how we sleep on this bed. I need to move further away, and my spouse can be closer to the bathroom. Maybe a person now is using a walker. Are your doorways able to accommodate that walker for someone coming through? Is there enough space? Do you have throw rugs in the way that could cause a hazard for somebody to trip? If I have to go to the bathroom and I'm on my way and I trip, I'm probably going to have an issue with the tripping, and I'm probably not going to make it to void in time to the bathroom. So just being proactive to look around. And then toileting schedules can be a big help if if you start looking at, during the day, every couple of hours and looking at the clock, whether you need to go or you don't need to go, that can be a big help in emptying out the bladder. So just some proactive, I always say too, a review of medications is very important. Looking at nutrition, very important. They all tie together. So let's say in a perfect world, we have improved some level of incontinence, but we still need a product for a person who is incontinent. Then it's very critical to look at things like size, because the example of the big box store that I just mentioned earlier has lots of different sizes. And at Seni, what we recommend, regardless of brand that you may be using or you may use in the future, look at a person's waist and hip size versus height and weight. Looking at a waist and hip size will give that person the best chance of having the right size. And so brand to brand to brand, sizing varies. So it's important to also understand the brand that you're buying and look for the sizing in inches. What does that mean? Very, very critical. So size is important for a good fit. I always give this example. If I was caring for my mom and I love my mom, it's no ill intent. I may go to the store and I may look at a bunch of different sizes and I may say, I think mom's a medium. Think. I don't know, but I think I'll get her a medium. Well, you know what? I see that large down the shelf, and it's a dollar cheaper. I'm going to get her the large. No, wait a minute. I see a medium slash large, M slash L. I'll be safe with that one. I'll get her that one. Well, if I put that product on mom, no ill intent. I love my mom. If that product is too big and she leaks, she may get up, she may fall, she may lie in bed with urine that has an odor to it. She's soiled, she's uncomfortable. Now we've got to do sheets. All these things tie in. So hips, waist, critical to getting the right size and understanding that size to size to size. I can't say it enough. It varies. And then moving to our E for essential features and evaluating mobility. I will tell you, people that are more active will fare better in a product, regardless of brand. If it is a pad or a pull up, and you think pull up is really pull it up, it's active underwear, disposable active underwear. I'm going to pull it up. If I'm active, I want to be able to go out, pull my disposable underwear up, and keep moving. People with dementia typically will fare better in active underwear. Why? Because it's more like what they are used to from the past in regards to their own underwear. So they may look at it and think, ah, that's my own underwear that I'm used to wearing. So, but people that are more immobile or progress more in the stage of Alzheimer's or dementia that have more heavy to severe incontinence, they may need to be in a brief because it's more super absorbent. So it's important to look at evaluating mobility versus immobility. And then it's really important to look at essential features. When you look at a product that's fully breathable, critical to maintaining good skin integrity. If your skin can breathe, we should not be fixing wounds in this country in 2024 directly related to urinary incontinence. Having a fully breathable product is just critical. And then there's a thing what they call inner leak guards. Inner leak guards, those help prevent urine from going over into sheets and people's clothing. It also helps for people that may have incontinence. They have all their faculties, but they're frightened. I don't want to go out. I don't want to take a chance. What if? And you think of it for any of us on this call today, if we had a bug and I was supposed to go shopping on Saturday with a friend, I would probably call that friend and say, whoa, let's do it some other time. I'm not feeling well. Uh, People with incontinence that have their faculties can live that isolated lifestyle for ongoing because they're afraid. So inner leak guards, a little thing, but a big thing that could make all the difference. So you want to look for fully breathable. You want to look for products that are comfortable, soft materials so they don't squeak, so they're discreet. Things like that are critical. And then there are products for day and products for night. Someone during the day that maybe is getting assistance with a helper, escorting them to the bathroom so they make it perfect. They're there. They may only need a light pad during the day just in case of an oops. But at night, they may be sound sleepers. Their incontinence may be a heavier flow, and they may need a product that's more absorbent. So again, when we look at person-centered and we look at day products, night products, very, very critical to keeping people safe and dry. Amber, can you go to the next slide, please? Great. And so this is the geriatrician that I just have a big place in my heart for her, Dr. Rosemary Laird, that we work with her. And she, again, proactive versus reactive. She'll be the first to jump up in the room and say urinary incontinence is not caused by aging. It's chronic, it's common, but there are other factors that contribute to it. And so when we understand that and dig into those other factors, oftentimes we can improve it by being proactive. And once again, it ties back to looking at each individual with their different needs and conditions on a case by case basis. Amber, can you go to the next slide here? We talked about sizing hips and waist. Try and think about getting away from height and weight. It is just really hips and waist are going to be the biggest factors. Can you go to the next slide, please? And we talked about this. Just wanted to put some bullet points. Look for products that are 100% breathable, super absorbent, have leak guards. Look at products. Does your loved one need a pad versus a guard versus a pull up? Manufacturers? And if you go to independent pharmacies, many of those pharmacists are trained and well versed on incontinence products, and they can help guide to a product. Many companies, including Seni, including ours, we want people to get free product samples. We want people to try the product before they buy the product for the right size, the right fit, the right type of product. So very critical to make sure that you've got a product that's working and you've tried it and the loved one is using it correctly. Next slide, please, Amber. We talked about this night versus day. When we think about night versus day product, we increase our odds for our loved one to get a good night's sleep, that restorative sleep. Again, tying it all together. Dementia, urinary incontinence, sleep. They go, if we had three hands, they would be connected. Next slide, Amber. And then, so a couple of examples, people say, well, what's person-centered approach? Well, it's looking at habits of individuals. It's looking at their eating, their voiding patterns, the things that they wear, the things that they do. But from a urinary incontinence, how do we help them perspective, some person-centered approaches that may be helpful instead of buying a package of products for a loved one and just sitting it on top of a dresser drawer. You may want to think about, let me pull these out of the package and let me put them in the drawer for my loved one that is capable of dressing themselves at this stage of the disease, because to them it feels more comfortable. It feels more habitual of what they're used to doing. And if we can make them feel comfortable and more routine of what they're used to, that's a good thing for our loved one and it's a good thing for us. So this is one approach, just to think about taking a product and putting it into the drawers and having that person feel, I'm still me, I'm still human, I'm still me. Can you go to the next slide, please? And this is just an example here. As people progress with dementia, I'm sure a lot of people on this call probably know this already, but they can start to see just tunnel vision, right? And there's a narrowing. So someone coming at them to change them in their private areas can be very stressful. It can cause them to have challenging behaviors that start to stress the caregiver out. They're stressed. It can turn into a mood thing that just has escalated. Don't come near me. Don't touch me. I don't know you. I mean, there are all these different things. And so when when a person's wearing a good product that's breathable, has inner leak guards, is soft and comfortable, typically that person will only need 3 to 4 product changes in a 24-hour period. Think about that for a minute. If I'm a caregiver, whether I'm in a community or whether I'm at home, and if I dread or I'm frightened about Miss Mary in this example, and it's not a fault thing, this is a disease state that's going on up here, but if I feel like I have to go through this again and she has to go through this again, right? If it's your mom or dad, put yourself in those shoes. My mom or dad gets upset every single day when I change her. If we can pull 8, 9, 10 changes a day back to 3 or 4, that's less risk of challenging behaviors happening. And that's more time for pleasure with your loved ones. So that's the point of this one. When you use good products, changes are only necessary 3 to 4 times in a 24-hour period. So it's critical. And ripple effects, we're going to jump in. I want to be courteous of the time here and leave some time for questions. But I'm a big person. My teammates are big people on ripple effects. Ripple effects can be beautiful, positive ripple effects flowing, wonderful. They can also be negative ripple effects that can affect people. So I'm going to start with the negative and then move to the positive. But if you think about incontinence, the caregivers, if you are changing garments, if you are changing folks 6, 7, 8, 9 times or more a day, you run the risk of injury to your shoulders, to your back. If we can pull all of that back, that's a good thing. But that's a negative ripple effect when an inferior product is being used. Nutrition, I talked about this before. I don't feel like eating. I'm tired. I don't want to socialize. Um, Many of you have probably heard the saying, I'm not alone in the room, but I'm very lonely. So I just say with loved ones at any age, keep an eye out. If you're in a big room, mom or dad is aging, if they're over in the corner, but they're not eating, they're not engaged, think about what's going on with mom or dad because they're not alone in the room, but they could be very lonely internally, and we can do things to help them. And so, overall wellness, right? I might not want to participate in things if I feel like I'm afraid to go. I'm afraid to go down the hall. I'm afraid to go out to a restaurant. What if? When you use a good product, you can eliminate those types of things or at least reduce them. And so, soil, linens, garments, wet clothing, accidents, that's quite frankly, that's time, that's money, that's stress, that's worry, that's embarrassment for the person if they have their faculties, and it's just not pleasant. So, if we can reduce some of those things, that's a good thing. And the one thing finance that I put here, costs related to fixing. When you think about it, insurance or no insurance, there are costs related to UTIs, related to pressure sores, related to falls. There are costs related to wet sheets. It's time and it's money and it's worry and it's stress. And so, if we can reduce through education, through being proactive, and then through using good products, the finances, the stress, the worry, what's not to love about that? Who wouldn't agree with that? That's what we try to look for is better outcomes. But there are costs associated to fixing these things that through education we can change. So my favorite part here, we can change a lot of things through education, through being proactive. Caregivers, we use better products, less risk of burnout, less risk of saying, I can't do this anymore. Gosh, we got to look at putting mom or dad or my loved one into a community because I just can't do this anymore. With good products and education, we might be able to buy more time for couples to be together, for families to be together. Very, very critical. And then socialization. I hope all of us are able to enjoy quality of life, regardless of our age, regardless of our condition. Mom or dad that can go and enjoy a donut at a Christmas party. It doesn't have to be all in or fancy things, right? But socialization, have a conversation with a great grandchild, a grandchild, a daughter, memorable moments, pockets of time. All of these things are critical to a happy lifestyle, regardless of age. Housekeeping, we talked about, and finances, we talked about. I will say superior products, high performing products may cost a little bit more on the front end. They may. If you look down an aisle of products, if you go to a pharmacy, for products that are fully breathable, in elite guards, soft and comfortable, yep, per piece, per package, you might see $1, $2, maybe even $3 more. But think about that. You're sleeping through your loved one's sleeping through the night. You're not doing laundry. They're happy. You got to really look at those things and say, that's money well spent. And that's overall high value versus I'm going to look at strictly a price per piece or a price per pack. That's part of what we're trying to teach in the country is let's look at overall value and benefits versus strictly a cost thing. A cost gets us into trouble. Next slide, Amber. So we talked about this full breathability, a product that's super absorbent. What does that mean? It has to be able to hold enough urine to keep that person feeling dry through the night. If they feel dry through the night, they sleep through the night and reap that benefit of the good restorative sleep. So our company is very big on proactive. So we have good products. We have good skin creams. We're not the fix company for a wound because we feel strongly and globally. We've been around for a long, long time. Seni brand's been around since the 1990s. And so when you have good products on the front end, we should not be fixing the ugly on the back end. So proactive, good products, essential features. Next slide, Amber, please. Great. Just a little bit about our company. So our parent company is called TZMO. Our products are made in Poland. Our corporate headquarters here in the USA are out of Atlanta. My teammates and I do a lot of educational webinars like this, podcasts. We give free product samples. For us, the bigger mission is to change culture. It's not easy work. But when we get it right and when we have a person call and say, oh, finally, mom is sleeping through the night. Oh, I didn't have to change sheets last night. Finally, that's our reward. So it is a big mission to change culture, to think this is critical stuff. This is important stuff. It's not just a disposable commodity. So we are making headway here. We're happy to help anybody with questions. If you have any, I didn't look at the chat, but if any came in, if you're uncomfortable and afterwards you want to reach out to us, we do have on our website, you could click over on the top right of our website, free samples, but we are happy to help and just grateful to have the opportunity to speak with everyone today. Does anybody have any questions?
Let's see, we can give it some time. It doesn't look like there's anybody in the chat now, but if you guys have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A portion. And then did you want to put your information down on the chat, maybe if somebody wants to email you their questions or anything like that?
Absolutely. I'm going to put mine
Thank you
in.
so much for doing this also for us again.
Yeah, thank you, Zochi, so much. We really do appreciate it. I just feel education's key.
Definitely.
Great. And I'll just put our website in there as well. Everybody that needs help there. So terrific.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much, guys. And then just a quick reminder to everybody that's here joining us, if this is the first time, we do have a lot of programming with Leeza's Care, education classes like this. We also have support groups. Reach out if you guys need support groups. We have our Hugs program that's launching here closely in August, towards the end of August. And we also have our big fundraiser of the year, which is going to be our senior prom for this year. So if you guys go on our website, there's a link there for ticket purchases, or if you would like to support and send a senior, our Send a Senior campaign is you'll be purchasing a ticket for a senior that otherwise can't afford it themselves. So if you guys would like to help out in that form, or reach out to us if you guys have any questions or anything about this topic, senior prom, or any of our future events. And thank you so much again for doing this presentation for us.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.